to Minute Mayor Diplomacy. This is Zain Khan. Today is a very important show and a very important topic. I'm delighted today to introduce our distinguished guest, Mehmet Sukru Guzel, the founding president of Center for Peace and Reconciliation Studies. Mr. Guzel has been nominated 3 times for the Noble Peace Prize for his outstanding contributions to peace building and conflict resolution efforts worldwide. Today, we are privileged to have him here to shed light on the crucial topic of peace through law, exploring legality and intervention in global disputes. Welcome to our show, Mr. Guzel. It's such a pleasure having you.
Dear Ms. Zain Khan, it's a great pleasure encore to meet you after the COVID. It has been a long time, but I would like to make one correction. I was nominated altogether for 4 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. The last one is for solving the Kashmir dispute under the UN legal system.
Mr. Guzel, thank you for correcting me about your Nobel Peace Prize nominations. As the founder of the Center for Peace and Reconciliation Studies, could you elaborate on the role of law in achieving sustainable peace in today's global conflicts?
The peace wording is something really important, and it's something sometimes the meaning loses on the intellectual definition basis. But if you want to achieve a sustainable peace today, we need to understand what means international law. And international law is not the law of the gods or spirituals. It's made by the states subject to their needs. And the need is subject to the needs of their own survival. So what we define international law is the law of the states for their own survival. And the key point of the global system and the US system also means a hegemonic stability construction that was made subject to the needs of the weak states. Weak states means power, and if there is no balance of power, there is no role of law for achieving a sustainable peace. I mean, the best example is the Ukrainian war. The Ukrainian war, for me, and it's the reality, is a war of controlling the balance of power, and a weak power state doesn't want to lose its control as a balancer for the future.
You've explained very well, but what are some of the key legal frameworks or mechanisms that you believe are essential for addressing and resolving global disputes effectively?
We first need to understand a concept that was never mentioned in the international relations. In reality, we need to understand what is the unipolar world system. A big power polar state needs for its own survival. As a big power, enemies. You may not like the answer, but this is the reality. A big power needs enemies, and if the big power doesn't have enemies, the big power needs to create enemies by which the big power can divide the world as allies and enemies. A unipolar world system means a permanent cause. And so what we need is to have a sustainable peace. In reality, a multipolar world system. For example, we can remember the Cold War. For the Cold War balance system in a multipolar world system brings a sustainability for the world, and the world was not in a cause as of today. And for a permanent sustainable peace, I think that we need minimum 3 multipolars, big powers, that is the US, Russia, and China. Additionally, 5 multipolar, that is the Turkish world, the European Union, Arab world, Africa, and in my belief, Pakistan and India that together in the global world system can be a key actor. I add Japan as an independent technology ally of the older world like South Korea. And if we cannot have the multipolar world system with multipolar states, powers, the world will be at war as of today. There is no world war as of today, but the world is at war because of the loss of the multipolar world system.
Mr. Guzel, in your experience, how do you navigate the delicate balance between respecting national sovereignty and advocating for international intervention in conflicts for the sake of peace and justice?
Maybe we should say that what is legal national sovereignty, exact definition of national sovereignty must be fulfilled with human values and human rights. And with that, we can have the rightful national sovereignty, like the state of Switzerland, respecting to human values, humanity, by which there will be no need for international intervention on human race. And we can have what we say the responsibility to protect that is created by the United Nations after the ex-Yugoslavia. And we can say that we have got the Geneva Convention, by which national sovereignty cannot be an obstacle for protecting the human values.
I want to get to a very technical question. Can you share with us some examples where legal mechanisms have successfully mediated or resolved conflicts between nations or within regions?
I mean, we can give some examples of the success stories from the United Nations Peacekeeping Force, and United Nations mediation. I can give the legal examples like Sierra Leone, Burundi, Cote d'Ivoire, Timor-Leste, Liberia. But these are the conflicts within small states. And what we have is that a military intervention at that time was not legal for Kosovo, but on humanitarian spiritual basis, which was 100% legal, was also made, but this was made without the UN legal system. Now we need to think one more other thing, the dark side of the moon. I mean, the legally successful examples that I have given now are not related with the balance of the power of the world. They are based simply on and only on regime change other than Kosovo. Kosovo is something different. In reality, when there is a balance of power, we could not achieve anything yet, like the Kashmir problem or the problem on Ukraine. And when there is the big state supporting a conflict, and when there are gross violations of human rights, but the gross of violations of human rights are supported by the big powers, and within this framework, we cannot achieve a peace. I mean, the best example is the Palestinian issue. But on the Palestinian issue, maybe for the future, I think I'm hopeful because I cannot enter the details now, but I found a mistake in one of the UN Security Council resolutions by which Israel thinks that it can oppose two state solution. But again, when we come to a position, if a big power state supports an internal armed conflict, we cannot achieve any peace in that region.
Mr. Guzel, given the complexities of modern conflicts, how do you see the evolving role of international law in addressing issues such as terrorism, cyber warfare, and hybrid threats?
Let's think about the reality. I mean, laws are always created by the needs, and international law for countering terrorism was created after the existence of terrorism, as the way we understood today. Other than cyber warfare and hardware threats, I mean, on terrorism, I may want to change the definition of religion-based terrorism or in the corner, but in reality, the non-state armed groups and the armed state guard groups designated as terrorists becomes, as of today, an instrument in the proxy war of the other states. And in the UN legal system, even till 1994, to kill civilians by the so-called non-state armed groups, defining themselves as national liberation movements, had a legal right within the UN legal system to kill civilians. And we have to understand that some states needs to achieve its goal to create terrorism in other states in the balance of power games. But this balance of power games doesn't need to be the big power states. For example, the golden rule of realpolitik, going back to ancient Greek times, to Thucydides, he said that right, as the world court goes, is only in question between equals in power, while the strong can do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. And here the weak is a small state, and the small state definition means weaker than the other ones. And as long as the international law cannot prevent the needs of states to create proxy wars in other states, and as long as law evolves after the new circumstances, the new laws will evolve according to the new needs that will be come to reality, and this will be always an egg chicken and a chicken egg game. And this is what I can say. I'm sorry.
Now, if we comprehend the academic debate, critics argue that relying too heavily on legal frameworks might hinder timely intervention in conflicts where immediate action is needed. How do you respond to such concerns?
Oh, I do agree with this. I mean, the most important point is, as I mentioned before, the spirit of the laws. And when we have the United Nations Charter and purposes of the United Nations Charter to protect human beings. For example, the Kosovo intervention was made without a UN Security Council resolution, but it was in conformity with the spirit of laws of protecting the humanity. And the legality of national sovereignty is subject to a rightful regime. But the international legal framework subject to UN Security Council can only be fast if needed is against a smaller state, and and it shouldn't be cost too much money. To create peace also means money for states, and for this reason, peace always to create peace in an armed conflict, as long as means money, it becomes mercy of the great powers, and it becomes a great mercy of the budget of the great powers. And this is what I can say. It is not as easy as to do on humanitarian values. Peace costs money. To create an armed conflict can make by provocations and can be. It's always cheaper than creating peace.
Now, I've understood your point of view, but in your opinion, what are some of the major challenges facing the implementation and enforcement of international laws and agreements in today's geopolitical landscape?
Uh, there is a concept named state mind. And if the state mind decides to challenge the international law according to its needs, then it challenges. I mean, it's a concept of challenge and respond. And the state's mind calculates the response for a challenge and decides if it can do it or not. And we need to understand under which conditions a state can challenge the international law-based orders. I mean, this cannot be as a big power state challenge to international law. I can give a small state challenge for the Rohingya issue of Myanmar. Myanmar challenged the international law-based order, violated all forms of human rights order on the calculation of one thing. And this argument encourages Myanmar to make ethnic cleansing. It says that any humanitarian intervention against me by the big states, no, other than even with a UN Security Council resolution, will cost so much money. And Myanmar knows that nothing will be happen to him because Kosovo was in the heart of Europe, and there are hundreds of, not hundreds of, maybe 50 or 60 military bases that can intervene militarily to Kosovo. But where Myanmar is far away in Asia, and when Myanmar knows that even with the UN Security Council to secure some military air bases will not be easy, and nobody is to send their aircraft carriers for technical issues and for the cost of money. Myanmar thought that it will cost so much money for any humanitarian intervention, and the global world will decide to feed the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, which will be much more cheaper. So what we can say is that to protect peace and humanity, money is the first need, and the need of money is sometimes encourage the states to challenge the international law to violate the all the rule-based law.
Mr. Guzel, if you look at this topic from a micro lens, a question arises. How can grassroots movements and civil society organizations contribute to promoting a culture of legality and peaceful conflict resolution at the local and international levels?
Uh, well, I wish I could have given some positive answers to this question. But unfortunately, we have the reality of weaponization of human rights ideologically for the needs of the states and the non-state armed groups designated as terrorists. And there are some other groups, even they are not designated as terrorists, but within an armed conflict, uh, have their own political roadmaps. I mean, I'm now in the United Nations building in Geneva office, and outside is the human rights session still going on, but also received in these corridors that threats from the pro-LTT members of the terrorist organization LTT, just asking for the implementation of UN Global Counterterrorism Strategy. So weaponization of human rights by misuse and fake news each day reduces the value of international civil society in the world. I can give an also example from here. 99% of the human rights system, in a way or other, financed by states or civil society engaged with political roadmaps other than protecting human values. And what I think is that we need a new renaissance on human rights. What we need is new people like Jean-Jacques Rousseau or academicians to change the future of the world by creating new values. And the civil society, I can say that there is a corruption in the legal framework of the civil society.
As someone who has been nominated multiple times for the Noble Peace Prize, what do you believe are the most significant prerequisites for achieving lasting peace in today's world?
This is the hard question. I mean, the most significant prerequisite is the intent for peace, the will for the peace. And to achieve this, we need to think of building a community of the world with a shared future for human beings. And in general, when the word is peace is used, it is the second is sentence. In general, is the definition of the political roadmap of the parties who are in the conflict, in armed or not. And when they say the second sentence, their political roadmap, this means that peace is subject to my winning or subject to my will. And a true multilateralism firmly upholds the UN-centered international system and the international order underpinned by international law, what we need. I mean, our differences should be bridged through dialogue and consultation, and conflicts should be resolved through political negotiations. Promoting sustainable development to achieve peace through development. I mean, this is the economic part, and most of the armed conflicts are originated from economic reasons or misuse of the economic resources by corruption or giving to a different kind of groups. And to achieve a lasting peace and promote and protect human rights, also they should abide the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. But as of today, the mechanism of the UN is out of date, and we really need in the purpose and of the UN Charter a reform that can be achieved to finance the United Nations to individually finance its own peace operations or peace keeping forces. And when it is subject to the finance of the states, or without if there is no finance, the UN cannot achieve anything by its own to achieve peace, even in dialogue basis.
I want to get to the last question. Looking ahead, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of peace-building efforts, particularly in terms of integrating legal mechanisms with other approaches such as diplomacy, development, and humanitarian aid?
Well, to say the truth, this is the big part of UN Charter, because if we are talking about a world rule-based order, the peace building should be, in general, must be based on the UN Charter, and the individual states' effort to create peace sometimes resulted with unfortunately different results for ongoing armed conflicts. And this is the weak part, as I say, because it's not a codified mechanism that will perform the duty of dialogue in conflict or in armed conflict situations between the states or in civil wars. Today, although this deficiency is being tried to be eliminated through special representatives appointed by the UN Secretary General or Committee of Inquiries, the mechanism system model returned to be the only chance of being moderated by the United Nations. But this model, especially the special advised representative model on conflict solution in armed conflicts, civil wars, or we saw that the mistakes of the special representative of the UN can return to be one of the reasons of the sustainable armed conflict, not the peace. I can give the example of the so-called Syrian civil war. For other reasons, I say it's a so-called Syrian civil war. Now, the UN mechanism is the main reason to prevent peace. How? In general, we say that to bring democracy, peace to end and ongoing armed conflict in a state, a new constitution is needed. But how it is codified within the UN system by the UN Security Council resolution, because of a report of the special advisor, it is asked for 100% consensus on the new Syrian constitution. But when there is 100% need for approval for the new constitution, any part of the armed conflict to reach its political aims uses this 100% consensus to block the peace efforts, to spoil the peace. And this is the main reason for the ongoing of the so-called civil war in Syria, because of a resolution of the UN Security Council asking for 100% consensus. And this is originated from the report of the special representative of the UN Security Council. I'm involved in different parts of the world, some peace buildings, and in general, there is the concept of a going train. What does it mean, a going train? If you get onto the train, you will be with us. If you leave the train, you will not be a part in the peace process. And it's accepted in general to be 70% of the whole community to be involved in a conflict is enough. How this 70% is accepted is originated from the UN Charter for important decisions, not the majority, 51%. But the two-thirds of the General Assembly member states votes are needed. So there is no resolution exceptional even in the UN General Assembly. 100% can pass, but you ask for 100% of consensus in an ongoing civil war. Now we need to make reform within the UN system, add some articles on peacekeeping, peace operations, and preventing ongoing armed conflict related articles to the UN Charter and to the UN body.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guzel, for sharing your insights and expertise on this critical topic of peace through law.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Zain Khan. It's a great pleasure to be with you again and hope to be again in the future on different topics.
This was Mr. Sukru Guzel, nominated 4 times for the Noble Peace Prize for his outstanding contributions to peacebuilding and conflict resolution efforts worldwide. We discussed exploring legality and intervention in global disputes. Until the next episode of Minute Mirror Diplomacy, this is Zain Khan. Take care and goodbye.